Thank you. And I would like to thank you the opportunity to present our work here. Actually, the project I'm going to present that is about integration, sustainable development into laboratory practices. And we are going to present actually in two talks, my talk here and my colleague Pille is going to present a little later, another approach. There was a project in different lines within the same project. But today I'm going to present one part of the approach that is really focused on the laboratory sessions and how we can integrate sustainable development in those. We face a paradox. Experimental natural science are central for addressing sustainable challenges, but at the same time, research laboratories and teaching laboratories that train future scientists has a huge environmental footprint. For example, in energy, for example, in the amount of resources that they use, about the waste. You can see here as an example, just that is the amount of plastic waste that research lab in Dutch universities produce during a year. You can, maybe you don't see the numbers, but it's 4 tons of syringe and 9 tons of gloves per year. So we train natural science students or science students to tackle, to work with these challenges, but many times we don't teach them with sustainable principles. But we must do that. We must train future scientists in sustainable experimental practices. This connects directly to education for sustainable development, ESD. And ESD emphasizes that sustainability should be integrated in education as a content, but also as a methodology in the way we teach. It should not be isolated. It should be interdisciplinary. It should be embedded in the whole curriculum. And most important, it's not just raise awareness in the learners, but give the tools to the learners to make responsible, to make informed decisions on sustainable development. But of course, it's not so easy to integrate those things sometimes in the curriculum, in the science curriculum. The literature tells us some problems. For example, sustainability is often treated as a theoretical topic, and mainly sometimes isolated. So you have sustainability workshops and you work with a case, a scenario, but it's just in the theoretical, in the discussion level. Traditional laboratory manuals focus on procedures. You should do that, you should take this thing, but not show the implications of those procedures in a wider perspective. Literature also says that many teachers don't feel the confidence to be able to do this integration of sustainability in their own practices. There are wonderful work out there, so there are many approaches that are there and working. For example, the addition of green labs into curriculum, green labs that follow the. Sorry, I just stopped my presentation. I took the wrong button. No, here, I'm back. That follow the 12 principles of green chemistry. They are both sustainable and teach sustainable practices. But those additions sometimes are isolated moments. They can require a quite change in curriculum. And of course, sometimes it's just linked to a person, to a researcher that feel confidence and have the competence to develop those green labs. Universities, research institutes are now, or has been for some years, having another wider approach by starting following accreditation or certification schemes, such as LEAF or My Green Lab, towards a more sustainable practices. There are great strategies, but sometimes they are difficult for maybe small institutions. since they require quite big infrastructure changes that are, of course, costly, quite high workload, and sometimes it's a top-bottom structure or approach. So the decisions that they are taking on the top, maybe they are not so accepted by the bottom users. So there is kind of low, or there is a reluctance to adoption by the teacher that has to do the teaching. So it doesn't work so well. What we aim, what we want to do so little as possible. So we want to make small changes that they don't change the curriculum a lot, that has a quite workload, and that is easy to implement or to accept by teachers. Our aim, we express it like that, is to investigate whether sustainable perspectives can be integrated into existing laboratories. We are not going to create new moments. We are going to integrate sustainable development in existing laboratory moments. And we aim to explore how this such integration affects or influences the students' awareness of the sustainable development goals that you can see there, and their behaviors in the lab. So now that's too fast. Okay. Yes, I want to stop that one. Yeah. Our strategy is based on the following idea. If we increase visibility of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and we add some structured discussion about sustainability, we could enhance sustainability awareness and actually some kind of change in behavior. The strategy is divided in 3 steps. In step 1, we are going to analyze the existing laboratories from a sustainability perspective and identify procedures, tasks in the lab that can be linked to SDGs. After the identification, we modify the lab instructions, the lab manuals, and we include some kind of symbols that leave or show clearly the connection. And finally, in step 3, we also add some reflection prompts to support critical thinking around sustainable development. I'd like to just go a little bit more detail in these 3 steps. As I said, the step 1 is mapping laboratory tasks, procedures to SDGs. And that was we did that by analyzing the existing instructions through a new lens, through the sustainable development perspective. And this was done by the course teaching team, and sometimes aided by the teachers in this project. The tasks were identified of map based on certain criteria, such as their environmental impact, their relevance to society, their resource use, and so on. And once the task was identified in the instruction, it was marked with the SDG wheel symbol, the one you see here. So you can see an example in the picture. This is from a manual, but translated to English. And we have an instruction here, use the same pipette tip while targeting the same solution that is marked with a symbol to visualize, and that is maybe important from a sustainable perspective. This analysis was supported by what we call a sustainability worksheet. It was a worksheet in Excel, but there we could list a lot of different tasks and the link to SDGs. To make this more visible to the students, we also include what we call sustainability tables, and they were out at the end of the lab manuals. These sustainability tables, that is the one that you have here, describes this relationship between the task, like the one I presented before, and the SDGs. For example, here we have the amount of plastic waste is minimized by rinsing and reusing plastic pipettes. That is linked to SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, and target 12.5, substantially reduce waste generation. So now sustainability is not an abstract concept, but something linked to what you actually do in the lab. The last point was adding discussion prompts. And this, of course, is to promote discussions around sustainable development and open up the lab. It's not just what I do here, but it's what I do here and how this procedure affects the environment, the society outside the lab. We try to, in order to help the teachers to do this process, we collect a lot of discussion questions, and we classify actually by SDGs. So we have into this sustainability worksheet question bank classified by SDG, and the teachers can go there and check something. Okay, I like this discussion question that I can put in my lab session, or my lab manual to my lab session. We hope that this will be a living document, and we are going to have more and more discussions, questions, and links when more labs or lab sessions are included in this project. Well, this was the structure, but now is what we did, the intervention. So we did this with several courses in different programs at Kristianstad University. I'm going to present two. The first one is the Laboratory Science 1 at the Biomedical Laboratory Science program, and the other one, the Fundamental Ideas of Chemistry and Chemical Thinking at the Teacher Education program. Both are first semester courses, one with 9 laboratory sessions, and the other one with 5 laboratory sessions, 3 hours each, more or less, 3 to 6. In the intervention, we have different groups. For the biomedical program, we have 1 group before intervention and 3 student groups after intervention, while we have just 1 group in the teacher education program. We incorporated the symbology, the symbols, the SDG symbols in the manuals, and we incorporate also discussion prompts or discussion questions in the lab manuals, as well as written and oral discussion around sustainability. In order to assess if there is some effect, we collect data both from written materials from the students. For example, the last laboratory session for the biomedical program, this one, is a problem-based laboratory. There is no lab instruction, or there is just the student has to come up with a set of experiments that they have to perform to solve a problem. And in this planning, they have to also reflect on their choices. Why I have this method, how much chemicals are used to make this method from a sustainability perspective. And we got also information from, we have some reports also, laboratory reports after the session. We also collect observations from the teachers during the laboratory sessions. And for the Laboratory Science 1, we have also student discussions during an oral reflection at the end of the lab, and observations actually in a course that comes later in the program. I'm going to explain this later. We analyze all this data qualitatively. We focus on student awareness of SDGs, reflections on sustainability, and observed changes in behavior. And here are the results. First, for the Laboratory Science 1, based on the laboratory planning and the oral discussions. And in general, we saw increased awareness around sustainability. If we compare the group before intervention and the groups after intervention, we could see a higher frequency of reflection and connections to sustainability principles, in the Britain lab report, laboratory planning, and also that the procedures were linked to SDGs in the laboratory planning. We can also observe a better discussions and better ability to discuss sustainability problems linked to laboratory tasks in the oral discussions with a teacher that we have. It's a 10 minutes discussion after the lab that the teacher, student sits with the teacher and they discuss about their choices and how to think about the lab session. Yeah, when we move to the teachers program, here we see similar trends based on qualitative data. What we saw very clearly was that discussion prompts in the lab manual directly lead to spontaneous and quite lively discussions during the lab, and actually that they led to changes in behavior. The students just stop and say, yeah, but this lab manual makes no sense. We use too much chemicals in this step. Why we are using that? So they just start calculating and reviewing the lab manual at the moment in the session and decide to do another type of preparation. So they were using less chemicals in that step. And so there was, you could see a behavioral change there already at the laboratory session. The students, something that was interesting is actually that the students reflected on the importance of promoting sustainable development in their future roles. Okay, there was some reflection that they did when they reflect in their reports. And we can see maybe here a ripple effect that if we teach sustainable development in the laboratories for these teachers, maybe they just bring that into the schools, hopefully. Yeah, little summary, what is the outcomes that we see? We see an increased ability to discussion around how SDGs are linked to laboratory work, an increase of proactive and unprompted discussions around resource use and waste. And when we follow one of the groups later on in the program, you could see actually a 33% reduction in single-use plastic waste compared with a group that was not in this intervention. But, however, the declared awareness or the ability to discuss theoretically not always reflected in the practicality, in how the students perform in the lab. They could discuss, of course, I'm going to use just gloves what is needed, but we observe an overuse of gloves anyway. Many times the students just relate or link the procedures to SDG 12. I need to read the name, I always forget. Responsible consumption and production, and not to other SDGs. So it was kind of limited. We think that this is a sign that for a more global understanding, for a more system thinking, we need other activities that complement this approach. So it's not enough. We must go forward and do something else. I see I have time to present the teacher's perspective, or it was also interesting for us. The teachers were participating in this project, and they said that the preparatory work was not super time consuming. The changes also did not compromise the learning goal for the lab. They just add a different layer and open up the doors of the lab to the outside world. So it was interesting, nice to see from their comments. One thing that it was also interesting is just the analysis of the laboratory instructions lead directly to improvements on the sustainability of our laboratories. So the teachers themselves, they say, okay, no, I can change this, this and this, and make this practice more sustainable. Waste, resources, safety. So it was just a good work in the teacher team. It was also a low barrier for adoption. They thought that the tools were suitable. It was not so difficult to go in the project and adopt this approach. And we're happy for that. And even we could see that teachers, colleagues that were not so keen on adding this type of themes in their teaching, they adopt the approach, and they thought that it was a good way to introduce sustainability into their teaching. So finally, in conclusion, integrating sustainability into ordinary laboratory teaching or existing laboratory teaching is feasible from a student perspective, a student and teacher perspective, without changing the learning outcomes of the practical. It leads to more sustainable laboratory practices and may lead to behavioral changes, but maybe this is not enough. It's a start. Okay, we start here. Increase awareness, the students get some kind of literacy around sustainability, but we need to do more, maybe more discussions or complement this approach with other type of learning moments. And with this, I would like to thank my colleagues that were in this project, that is Britt-Marie and Patrick and Krista. Pille, you're going to see her later, but of course I thank her as well, and all of you for your attention. Thank you.